Every good prince must be both a fox, to spot the traps, and a lion, to devour the wolves.
You may not say it out loud, but deep down, you know the world doesn't always reward those who play fair. You know that kindness alone is not enough. That hard work and good intentions don't guarantee anything, and sooner or later, life will demand something more from you. Vision, coldness, intelligence, if you want to survive the game, without being devoured in the process. Because sometimes being honest doesn't protect you. It turns you into the perfect target for those who know how to play dirty. So, what should we do? It's not about becoming cruel, it's about becoming smart. And no one ever understood that difference better than Machiavelli, who made one thing clear. To survive and thrive in this world, you must learn to be two things: a lion and a fox. The lion represents strength, visible power, the kind of presence that commands respect with nothing but a roar. The fox, on the other hand, stands for cunning, the skill of detecting traps, reading hidden intentions, and moving with precision while others expose themselves. Ideally, of course, one would be both, strong and clever, muscle and vision. But let's be honest, not everyone can be a lion. Not everyone is born with power, influence, physical presence, or a voice that commands silence. But anyone, and I mean anyone, can and must learn to be a fox if they want to survive. We can all learn to observe closely, to anticipate the blow, to detect the lie, the manipulation, the trap, to move wisely without getting caught. Because cunning is not a gift, it's a discipline, and anyone can develop it if they cultivate the right things: knowledge, awareness, and strategy. That's why today, you're going to discover 5 essential lessons from the mind of Machiavelli. 5 principles you can apply in your own life to succeed. 5 strategies, 5 insights, 5 warnings, 5 ways to become sharper, more strategic, more cunning, and most importantly, far less naive. Because in this world, if you can't be a lion, you'd better learn to be a fox. Machiavelli's first lesson is crystal clear. Never remain neutral when there's a conflict between two sides. At first glance, neutrality might seem like the wise or cautious path. But in the real world, in politics, in business, in families, in groups of friends, neutrality is rarely seen as wisdom. More often, it's seen as weakness or even cowardice.
Those who try to stay neutral are always caught between the hostility of the victor and the contempt of the defeated.
In a power struggle, if you try to please both sides by staying out of it, you end up losing the respect of everyone. You're left alone, isolated, invisible. The victor won't trust you because you didn't help, and the loser won't forgive you because you refuse to share the risk. When the storm passes, you'll find yourself without allies, because no one wants to protect someone who stood for nothing when it mattered. But if you choose a side, and that side wins, even if you're beneath them in the hierarchy, they'll remember your loyalty. As Machiavelli noted, people rarely forget those who stood by them in hard times. And even if you chose the losing side, you'll have gained something far more valuable: respect. That person will see you as someone who had their back when it mattered, and in time, their fortunes may rise again, with you as an ally. Now imagine this. 2 of your closest friends have a serious fallout. Each one comes to you, looking for support, and you, with the best intentions, try to stay out of it. You keep quiet. You don't take a side. You say nothing. The result? Both drift away from you. They suspect your silence. They feel betrayed by your lack of loyalty. And you, who simply wanted to avoid drama, end up with neither of them. Because in real conflicts, not choosing is a choice, and those who stand with no one end up alone. It's the same in a company. When there's a new project, a power shift, or a vote that could change direction, staying neutral might feel safe, but it often leads to being distrusted by everyone. People respect clarity, not indecision. Neutrality is tempting. It gives the illusion of safety. It makes you believe you're avoiding enemies. But it's a trap. Because when the dust settles, you're not on either side. You're out of the game. Machiavelli warns us that the irresolute prince, the one who always waits for the perfect moment, who hesitates, who never chooses, is doomed to fail. Because decision, even when risky, earns respect, and everyone wants to be near someone who is respected. Choosing a side doesn't mean doing it blindly. It means having judgment, showing character, making it clear that you know what you stand for, and that if someone attacks you, you won't disappear. Even if you lose, you'll gain something far more enduring: loyalty, recognition, and dignity. Because, as Machiavelli reminds us, if the ally you supported falls, they'll see you as a companion in misfortune, and if they win, they'll never forget you were there when others hesitated. Here's the paradox. The person who tries the hardest to avoid confrontation is often the one who suffers most from its consequences. So next time you face a serious conflict between two people, two paths, or two forces, and you feel the urge to stay silent, to stay neutral, ask yourself, what will I lose if I don't take a stand? And what might I gain if I have the courage to choose? Because success, like respect, is never given to the neutral. It belongs to those who dare to choose, even when the path is rough. Machiavelli's second lesson is all about the art of prevention, the ability to see chaos coming and act before it strikes. It's about detecting threats while they're still weak and responding with the decisiveness of someone who doesn't wait for permission. To prevent is not to be paranoid. It is to be intelligent. It's about acting when the problem hasn't fully formed yet, when it can still be stopped with a word, a timely retreat, or a single firm gesture. Machiavelli explained it with a striking image. A disease in its early stages is hard to detect, but easy to cure. If left to advance, it becomes easy to diagnose, but impossible to heal. The same goes for conflict, betrayal, disrespect, or any subtle sign of disorder that most people choose to ignore.
What you refuse to confront when it's weak will confront you when it's strong, and by then, it may be too late.
What usually happens is this: we trade short-term comfort for long-term pain. That's the very illusion Machiavelli warned us against, the naive belief that time will fix what only courage can stop. That's why he insisted, even in times of peace, you must prepare for war, not like a paranoid, but like a strategist. Maybe your relationship seems fine on the surface. That doesn't mean you should stop observing, asking questions, or creating space when something feels off. Maybe your job feels stable, but something shifted in the atmosphere. Don't wait to be called into the office. Anticipate. Reinvent yourself. Move early, because those who act only when the danger is obvious are already too late. And those who move while it still seems exaggerated to do so are the ones who survive. But prevention is one thing. Tolerating abuse is another. And this brings us to Machiavelli's third lesson, one that's inseparable from the last. Never let an offense go unanswered just to avoid a conflict. Because the person who accepts humiliation in the name of keeping the peace usually ends up with both, the humiliation and the war. You see it all the time. That person who laughs awkwardly when they're made fun of, just to avoid seeming too sensitive. That coworker who swallows an insulting comment from the boss because they need the job. That friend who allows themselves to be ignored, used, or excluded just to avoid making others uncomfortable. And every time they stay silent, the other side learns one simple truth. They can continue. There are no consequences. Because no one stops a behavior that meets no resistance.
War is not avoided, it is merely postponed to your own disadvantage.
History proves it. In the years leading up to World War II, Britain and France watched as Hitler broke treaties, annexed territories, and amassed power. Austria, the Sudetenland, Czechoslovakia, and instead of stopping him, they made deals. They tolerated his provocations, thinking that giving him space would avoid a war. But they achieved the opposite. They gave him time to grow stronger. And when they finally acted, it was too late. The price was a world war and over 60 million lives. The same principle applies to everyday life. When you tolerate the first act of disrespect, the other person learns that it's allowed. And not only will they continue, they'll escalate. That's why Machiavelli insists, firmness must be immediate. This isn't about yelling or shaming, it's about setting a boundary clearly and early. If someone makes a passive-aggressive joke, don't laugh, don't smile. Meet their eyes and say calmly, "That doesn't amuse me. I'd rather you not say that again." If someone ignores you, belittles you, or uses you, don't explain yourself. Don't justify. Create distance. Make it known. Every time you correct a boundary violation in the moment, you gain respect. Every time you let it slide, you give permission for it to happen again. Respect is established in the first minutes of any relationship. If you don't demand it with quiet dignity, you'll end up begging for it on your knees. Machiavelli's fourth lesson is one of the most subtle and one of the most dangerous to ignore. Beware of flattery, especially when you begin to gain power, influence, or recognition, because that's when criticism becomes harsher, but praise starts to multiply. And not all of it comes from admiration. Much of it comes from envy, from manipulation.
Men delight so much in their own achievements and feel so comfortable hearing only what pleases them that they become defenseless against that silent plague called flattery.
You see it every day. People who flatter their boss, not out of respect, but to gain something. They've learned that telling him what he wants to hear works better than telling him the truth. You see it in people who give their opinions on your relationships, not out of genuine care, but because they envy what you have. They criticize behind your back, but when you walk in, they smile and praise you. You see it in fake friends who cheer your success in public, but can't stand the fact that you've achieved what they couldn't. They hug you in front of others, but poison you behind closed doors. And the danger is this: flattery hurts less than criticism, but it causes far more damage. Because it confuses you, it lowers your guard. It makes you relax at the exact moment you should be most alert. Flattery is like social dopamine. It feels good, it's addictive, it feeds your ego, but it also clouds your judgment. You get used to hearing applause, and you start rejecting truth. You begin surrounding yourself only with those who clap, not those who make you think. And that, for anyone who aspires to lead, or already does, is the beginning of their fall. That's why Machiavelli proposes a sharp, strategic solution. The prince should allow truth to reach him only through wise men, and only when he has asked for it. This isn't about closing yourself off, it's about discernment, choosing carefully who you listen to and who you let in. The goal is not to have an army of flatterers, but a small circle of real trust. People who don't applaud out of habit, but who confront you when necessary. People who know you, respect you, but don't fear you. As for the rest, acquaintances, opportunists, those who appear only when you're shining, treat them with politeness, but distance. Because many want what you have, many would love to be where you are. And if they can't get it by merit, they'll try by erosion, and one of their most common weapons is praise. Praise disguised as admiration. Compliments that numb you, while they secretly speak poison behind your back.
Let us conclude, then, that good advice must come from the prince's prudence, not the prince's prudence from good advice.
Machiavelli's fifth and final lesson takes us into a far more delicate, more human, and more dangerous territory. Never humiliate anyone. Never plant hatred in someone's heart. Because that hatred doesn't disappear, it doesn't dissolve, it doesn't die. It waits, silent, patient, watching for the perfect moment. Machiavelli put it with chilling clarity. If you can't earn respect through love, earn it through fear, but never through humiliation, because fear may keep an enemy at bay, but humiliation doesn't stop them. It fuels them. It changes them. It darkens them. It makes them obsessive, dangerous. The humiliated don't forget. They may stay quiet, they may obey, they may smile, but inside, they're waiting. And when your guard is down, when you're weak, alone, or exposed, they will strike, and they will collect the debt. Think about it in everyday terms. A boss who mocks an employee in front of the entire team, they may look like they're in control, but they've just planted something toxic. And when a crisis comes, that employee may be the first to stab them in the back. It's the same in personal life. That partner who constantly ridicules you, who corrects you in public, who subtly puts you down. Today, the other person may say nothing. They may smile. They may endure. But inside, they're already searching for the exit. And when they find it, they won't come back. Or think of yourself. Has anyone ever made you feel truly humiliated? Not just criticized, humiliated, crushed, disrespected. Did you forget that feeling easily, or does it still live inside you, even after years? Power that is misused doesn't create respect. It creates hatred. And hatred, unlike fear, doesn't build hierarchies. It builds revenge. And revenge always collects its price. So if you want to be strong, don't destroy. If you want to hold your position, don't humiliate. You can set boundaries. You can correct. You can act with firmness, but always with dignity, always with restraint. Without the tone of superiority, without that cruel gesture that reminds others they're beneath you. Because respect can come from love or from fear, but never from contempt. And if you sow contempt, don't be surprised if one day, when you most need support, everyone turns their back on you. Let's now explore 5 practical ways to apply everything you've just heard. 5 tools to help you act with more clarity, more strength, and far less naivety. First, to apply the lesson of never staying neutral in a conflict, use what we could call the firm positioning technique. It's about making your stance clear from the start and explaining why, without aggression, without drama, but with total honesty. For example, if 2 co-workers are in conflict and both try to pull you into their side, don't hide behind the classic, "I'm staying out of it." Instead, say calmly, "I've listened to both of you, and while I value you both, I think the right call in this case is here. I'd rather be clear than vague." That kind of clarity earns respect, and more importantly, it clears the field, because the one who doesn't take a stand becomes no man's land, and no one protects land that has no owner. Second, to apply the lesson of preventing problems before they grow, incorporate the pre-mortem technique, developed by psychologist Gary Klein. Before making a big decision, imagine that everything has gone wrong. Picture the failure. Then ask yourself, what caused it? What signs did I ignore? For instance, before accepting a business proposal, imagine that in 6 months you're in conflict with your partner. What red flags did you miss? What values didn't align? This exercise trains your foresight. It helps you detect the storm while it's still just a breeze, not when it's already too late. Third, to apply the lesson of not tolerating offense to avoid conflict, train what we might call the immediate boundary rule. When someone crosses a line, act. Not tomorrow, not later, right then. You don't have to raise your voice. Just look them in the eye and say calmly, "I'd rather you not speak to me that way." Or, "I understand, but that tone isn't acceptable." A short, firm response with no hesitation, because if the other person senses they can push, they will. And each time you allow it, you're expanding the range they believe they can operate in. Respect isn't claimed with words, it's defined in the first seconds after the blow. And if you don't act then, the next blow will be harder. Fourth, to apply the lesson of avoiding flatterers and surrounding yourself with truth, identify what Robert Greene called the loyal third, a key figure, someone who doesn't compete with you, doesn't depend on you, and is intelligent and brave enough to tell you the truth when you're wrong. It could be a friend who challenges you with respect, or a mentor who won't just agree with you to keep the peace. And if you don't have anyone like that around, you'll need to build that space of truth within yourself. For example, write a weekly strategic self-review: 3 decisions you made, what consequences they had, and what signs you ignored. Because if no one around you is willing to tell you the truth, you'd better learn to tell it to yourself. Power that receives bad advice loses direction, but power that lacks self-awareness collapses. 5th, to apply the lesson of never humiliating others or planting hatred that can later turn against you, use what we can call the respect threshold rule. Every time you're about to correct someone, impose something, or set a hard boundary, ask yourself, am I earning respect or sowing resentment? In an argument with your partner, avoid using old mistakes as weapons. When correcting someone on your team, don't call them out in front of others. And if you must say something difficult, do it privately, firmly, but without humiliation. Because no one forgets how you made them feel, and the one who obeys you in silence today may become the one who hurts you most tomorrow when you're at your weakest. Throughout this video, you've discovered 5 of Machiavelli's most powerful teachings. 5 ways to build power, respect, and intelligence in a world where no one envies the weak, but everyone wants what the strong possess. And if you've made it this far, write the words, "The fox wins without roaring" in the comments, as a personal commitment not just to consume knowledge, but to apply it when the moment comes. And please don't let this video remain just theory. Make it a practical tool to transform your life and the lives of those around you. And if you want to continue exploring the ideas of the greatest thinkers and continue learning how to apply them to your life, subscribe to the channel to stay updated with the latest videos from the Sophist. Because those who learn to move like the fox often reach places the lion never could.